You ever had a moment where life just stops you in your tracks? Not the kind of pause where you take a breath or stretch, but a moment so profound that your mind goes completely blank, your body freezes, and the noise of the world around you feels like it's muffled? That was me. One evening, I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, and I realized I didn't recognize the person I had become. How had I ended up here? Not physically. Physically, I was fine. But inside, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I felt like a stranger to myself. 1 second, I had confidence, ambition, a sense of purpose. I thought I knew who I was and where I was headed. The next second, nothing. Just emptiness. At first, I blamed life. I blamed circumstances, people, opportunities missed, failures too numerous to count. But deep down, I knew that was an excuse. I knew I needed to look somewhere else, somewhere deeper. That's when I turned to the Quran, and not in the superficial way I had before, skimming verses like I was checking items off a list. No, this time I read it slowly, with intention. I let the words sink in. I asked myself questions, I paused, I reflected, and that's when everything began to change. For most of my life, I had treated religion as a kind of checklist. Pray 5 times, fast during Ramadan, be kind to others, yes, yes, yes. I believed in it, but only in a distant, procedural way. I thought faith was about obligation, about rules, about staying within boundaries. And while I followed those boundaries mostly, I had never allowed myself to feel the guidance behind them. I had never allowed the Quran to speak to my life in a meaningful, personal way. Until that night, there's a verse that I stumbled upon that changed everything. Do not think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them for a time. The first time I read it, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I reread it several times, each repetition peeling back another layer of understanding. Wait a minute, hold on. Everything I had ever struggled with, every heartbreak, every failure, every disappointment, every moment I felt stuck, it wasn't random. It wasn't meaningless. It wasn't that the universe, or God, had forgotten me or was punishing me. No, it was intentional. It took me a long time to even articulate it to myself, but I finally realized the obstacles, the setbacks, the moments that had broken me, they weren't punishments. They were lessons. They were signs. They were nudges, guiding me to reflect, to grow, to recalibrate my path. For the first time, I understood that life wasn't just happening to me. Life was happening for me. Even the pain, even the delays, had a purpose. And the world, which once seemed chaotic and unfair, began to look different. Suddenly, the uncertainty of life felt less like a threat and more like a message. I spent hours that night just thinking about myself, about my choices, about the people I had hurt, about the opportunities one had let slip away. I realized that my failures weren't failures. They were mirrors. They showed me my weaknesses, my blind spots, the areas where I had ignored guidance or chased things that didn't truly matter. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to look into those mirrors. I wanted to. I needed to. It's strange how one verse, one moment of clarity, can change your perspective so drastically. It didn't solve all my problems instantly. It didn't erase the mistakes I had made or the regrets I carried, but it opened a door to understanding, to reflection, to real growth. And that freeze moment, the one where I had been staring at the ceiling asking, how did I even get here? It transformed. It became a moment of awakening, a moment where I realized that I wasn't lost. I was exactly where I needed to be, even if I didn't yet know the full path forward. From that night onward, I approached the Quran differently. I didn't just read it, I experienced it. I asked questions. I let the words challenge me. I allowed them to reshape my understanding of life, of myself, of my purpose. And every time I reflected on that verse, I felt a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in how I saw my struggles. They became less like chains and more like stepping stones. Less like setbacks and more like guidance. That was the first step. The freeze moment, the paralysis of facing my own reality, wasn't a moment of defeat. It was the first spark of clarity. And it was terrifying because clarity requires honesty, and honesty is never comfortable. But it was also liberating because honesty is the only thing that leads to real change. That's when I realized, sometimes, life doesn't hit you to break you. Sometimes, it hits you to wake you up. There was a period in my life when it felt like everything I had built, everything I had hoped for, was crumbling right in front of me. Plans I thought were solid dissolved into uncertainty. Friends I trusted drifted away, leaving silence where there used to be laughter. Dreams that once lit up my nights and mornings alike seemed to die slowly, leaving a hollow space in my chest. I remember sitting alone in my room, staring at the dim ceiling light, feeling smaller, weaker, and more insignificant than ever before. I kept asking myself, over and over, is this it? Have I failed so badly that there's no coming back? It was one of those nights when despair wraps itself around your chest like a vice. Every decision I had made, every risk I had taken, seemed to mock me with its futility. I thought about giving up, not in some dramatic sense, but in a quiet surrender to life, a slow acceptance that maybe I wasn't meant for more than this stagnation. And in that bleakness, almost absent-mindedly, I reached for the Quran, not expecting anything. I flipped it open, eyes barely focusing, and then my gaze fell on a verse, "With hardship comes ease." At first, I read it mechanically, as if it were just another phrase. But then I paused. My mind lingered on that one small word with, not after hardship, but with hardship. And suddenly, it hit me like a lightning strike. The universe, the divine plan, the way life moves, it wasn't waiting to reward me after my suffering. The hardship itself was the companion of ease, intertwined with it, carrying within it the seeds of growth, of transformation, of unseen blessings. That one word reshaped everything I thought I knew about struggle. I began to realize that pain was not my enemy. Pain wasn't some cosmic punishment or a mark of failure. Pain was a teacher, a guide, a companion that showed me where I had room to grow. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every lonely night was shaping me, preparing me for something bigger, something I couldn't yet see. And with that realization came a strange, almost intoxicating sense of hope. Hope that even in darkness, there is direction. Even in chaos, there is purpose. Even in loss, there is preparation. And so I prayed. Not the kind of perfunctory, mechanical prayers I had done for years, but real, raw, heart-to-heart dua. I prayed with trembling sincerity, with tears that carried years of frustration, regret, and fear. I asked for guidance, for strength, for clarity. I didn't ask for my problems to disappear immediately. I didn't ask for a life without struggle. I asked for understanding. I asked for the ability to see the wisdom hidden in my suffering. And I asked for the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path was unclear. After that night, things didn't magically fix themselves. The darkness didn't vanish instantly, but something inside me changed. I began noticing signs, small, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakable if you pay attention. The way opportunities slowly aligned when I least expected it. The people who returned to my life at just the right moments, offering support or simply presence. The moments of clarity that seemed too perfectly timed to be coincidences. Each small event felt like a gentle whisper from Allah, saying, "I see you. I am here. Trust the process." I started looking at setbacks differently. That failure at work, it was preparing me for resilience, teaching me patience, and showing me the areas I needed to develop. The relationships that ended, they were lessons in understanding, compassion, and recognizing what truly matters. Even the moments I felt abandoned, lost, or unseen, they were part of the shaping process. Each hardship was a thread in the intricate tapestry of my life, woven together by wisdom I couldn't yet grasp fully. And in that process, I discovered something beautiful, the power of heartfelt dua. Not as a ritual, not as a formality, but as a conversation, a surrender, a deep acknowledgement that I couldn't do it alone, and that guidance was available if I sought it sincerely. Every whispered prayer, every tear shed in honesty, became a lifeline. They were like sparks of light in the dark, small yet persistent reminders that I wasn't walking through the darkness aimlessly. I was walking with direction, even if the path was unseen. That dark phase, which had once seemed unbearable, slowly became a classroom. The pain became a teacher. The solitude became a companion. The uncertainty became a canvas for faith to grow. I realized that Allah isn't just a distant controller of the universe, passively observing the chaos. He's actively shaping lives, orchestrating events, guiding hearts, and preparing souls for the journeys they are meant to undertake. Every delay, every obstacle, every heartbreak, they weren't signs of neglect. They were preparation. They were shaping me into someone who could recognize and embrace the ease that comes with hardship. By the time I began to truly internalize that lesson, I felt a sense of resilience I had never known before. Not arrogance, not overconfidence, but a quiet, steadfast confidence that no matter how dark things seemed, the hardship itself carried within it the promise of ease. I started to greet challenges differently, not with fear, but with curiosity and patience. I started to listen more closely, not just to the Quran, but to life itself, to the subtle ways it signals hope and guidance, even in moments of despair. That phase of my life didn't just end. It transformed me. It became the foundation for understanding that life's trials are not punishments. They are the pathways to growth, patience, and deeper connection. And that realization, that awakening, started from a single verse and a single heartfelt dua in the silence of a night that had once felt hopeless. One of the most transformative lessons I learned from the Quran is that it's not just a book of stories, commandments, or historical accounts. It's a manual for the heart, a guide for the mind, and a mirror for the soul. More than anything, it teaches you to reflect, to pause, to observe, to dig beneath the surface of life and notice the patterns, the subtle lessons, the wisdom hidden in plain sight. There's a verse that has stayed with me ever since. Look at the heavens. Look at the earth. Look at yourselves. Do you not see? At first glance, it seems simple, almost like a gentle prompt to pay attention. But as I meditated on it, I realized it was far more than that. It was an invitation to understand, to internalize the truth that nothing in life is meaningless. Not a smile, not a tear, not a delay, not a triumph. Everything is a piece of a bigger design, a pattern woven with intention. Life, in its chaos, its heartbreaks, its fleeting joys, is not random. It's a tapestry where every thread, every knot, and every color has a purpose. And when you begin to see that, you stop asking why me, and start asking what is this teaching me? I started looking at my own life through that lens. I reflected on how much of my energy I had spent chasing the approval of others, friends, family, colleagues, even strangers online. I chased comfort like it was a prize, constantly rearranging my life to minimize discomfort or avoid confrontation. I tried to control outcomes, micromanaging every choice, every decision, every conversation, as if life could be molded to fit my expectations. And then, slowly, painfully, I realized, control is an illusion. Life isn't about making everything go your way. Life isn't a series of checkboxes that, if executed perfectly, guarantees happiness or security. Life is about learning to trust, about learning to submit, not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of understanding that you don't have to carry the weight of the universe on your shoulders. Life is about acting with intention, pouring your energy into what you can influence, and letting go of the outcomes you cannot. There's a verse that spoke to me in ways I hadn't understood before, and whoever relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. I read that line over and over, like a mantra, and for a long time, it felt almost impossible to fully grasp. How could anyone rely completely on something they cannot see or touch, yet still feel truly safe? But then I began to understand. It's not about uttering the words casually, or reciting them in prayer with a distracted mind. It's about letting them sink into your bones, letting them settle in your heart so profoundly that even when life shakes you, even when circumstances collapse around you, there is a calm that doesn't depend on the outside world. A calm that exists because you've placed your trust in a wisdom greater than yourself. And when I reached that understanding, I began to see life differently. The failures I had endured, the pain I had carried, the disappointments I had tried to avoid, they weren't random. They were shaping me, teaching me, guiding me to develop patience, resilience, and clarity of purpose. Observation became a practice, a daily exercise. I would pause and reflect on the events of my day. Why did this happen? What was the lesson hidden in this encounter? What could I have learned if I looked deeper, beyond my initial frustration or disappointment. I noticed patterns everywhere, moments of synchronicity, when things lined up in ways that seemed almost too perfect to be chance. The people who came into my life at the right moments, offering guidance, support, or even just a listening ear. The challenges that tested me in ways I didn't understand at first, only to reveal a strength I didn't know I had. Life started feeling like a conversation, a dialogue between me and the world, mediated by the lessons in the Quran. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, or drifting, or reacting. I was learning, observing, reflecting, and growing. Purpose, I realized, isn't a destination. It isn't a career, a title, or a measure of success. Purpose is a lens through which you see life. It's the ability to look at hardship and recognize opportunity, to see struggle and discern meaning, to embrace uncertainty without losing faith. Purpose is living intentionally, trusting deeply, and understanding that even your smallest actions ripple outward in ways you cannot predict. And when you combine that trust with reflection, when you observe with intention, purpose becomes clear, not in every moment, but in the way life moves as a whole. It's not always easy. Some days, reflection feels like facing a mirror you're not ready to look into. Some days, observation reveals truths you'd rather ignore. But those are the days that matter most. Those are the moments when growth happens, when understanding deepens, when trust strengthens. Because reflection isn't a passive act. It's a dialogue. It's a practice of noticing, questioning, and integrating what life shows you, guided by the wisdom of the Quran. I began to notice something else, too. That calm, the trust that sinks into your bones, changes the way you act in the world. Decisions are no longer driven by fear or desperation. Actions are guided by awareness and intention. Relationships are approached with patience and empathy rather than control or manipulation. Challenges are faced with resilience, not resignation. And every step, every choice, feels lighter because it is no longer burdened by the illusion of needing to control everything. Reflection and observation became my compass. Purpose became my anchor. And through it all, the words of the Quran weren't just text, they were living guidance, woven into the rhythms of my life, illuminating the path even when it was difficult to see. In those moments, I finally understood what it means to rely upon Allah, to trust the wisdom behind the patterns, and to move forward with intention, calm, and clarity, even in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. And it doesn't stop there. The Quran's wisdom doesn't just live in the skies or the mountains, in the rivers or the stars. It lives inside us. Every moment, every movement, every thought carries meaning if we take the time to notice it. Every breath you take is a sign. Every heartbeat is a message. Every impulse, every fleeting emotion, every quiet tug at your conscience. It's all part of the divine design. And the more you pay attention, the more you allow yourself to see, the more you recognize that your existence is intentional, that your life is not an accident. For years, I had thought of myself as a random collection of experiences, biology, and circumstances. I thought my choices were shaped solely by luck or failure, my personality a patchwork of chance. But slowly, as I began to reflect, to observe, to really listen to myself, I started noticing patterns that weren't random at all. The way certain people appeared in my life exactly when I needed guidance. The way challenges would arrive with lessons carefully hidden inside them. The way moments of clarity often came after nights of confusion and struggle. I realized that every part of me, my strengths, my weaknesses, my quirks, my fears, was intentional, crafted with purpose, loved, nurtured, designed. And when that realization hits, it changes everything. Your worries shrink. They don't vanish completely, but their weight becomes manageable. Your fears lose their control over your decisions. Gratitude starts to grow in ways you didn't anticipate, like a quiet flame that steadily brightens the corners of your mind. You begin to live with purpose, not because you have it all figured out, not because life is easy, but because you understand that your existence is meaningful, that your life is intertwined with the rhythm and the plan of the one who created the universe. You begin to recognize that you are never separate from the divine design. You are part of it, a piece of the pattern, a note in the symphony of creation. I used to think faith was blind. I thought belief meant closing my eyes to reason, logic, and evidence. I imagined it as surrendering to uncertainty, throwing all questions away in exchange for comfort. But that was a misunderstanding, a shallow view of what faith could be. Now I know better. Faith is not blind. Faith is enlightened. Faith is not a resignation to ignorance. It is a deliberate, conscious awareness of the signs, a careful observation of the world and yourself, and a conscious choice to trust what you have seen and understood. Faith is connecting the dots between experiences, noticing patterns, and then leaning into that understanding with confidence. It's seeing that heartbreak taught you patience, that failure revealed hidden strengths, that moments of doubt pushed you to seek answers and reflection. It's recognizing that life is full of guidance if only you pay attention. And the Quran constantly reminds us to do exactly that, to think, to reflect, to observe, to question, and then to believe. It doesn't ask you to switch off your mind. It challenges your mind, encourages it, nurtures it. Knowledge and belief are not opposites. They are partners. The more you learn, the more you reflect, the more you understand, the stronger your faith becomes. I started noticing signs not just in the world outside, but inside me. In the way my heart reacts to honesty or cruelty. In the moments I feel compassion or regret. In the quiet whisper of intuition that guides my decisions. Each feeling, each reaction, each small insight was a clue. A sign pointing toward growth, guidance, or alignment with what is right. And the more I acknowledged these signs, the more I trusted them, and the more my faith deepened. Faith also became an anchor in uncertainty. When life seemed chaotic, when setbacks threatened to overwhelm me, that trust gave me a stable center. It didn't make problems disappear, but it made them navigable. It taught me that peace is not about control over the world. It's about clarity within yourself, about aligning your heart and mind with what is true, about seeing the signs and choosing trust. That awareness, seeing the divine order in life's flow, even when the path is hard, is what transforms fear into courage, despair into hope, and confusion into clarity. Slowly, I began to live differently. Decisions were no longer reactive or fueled by panic. I approached people, relationships, work, and challenges with calm and mindfulness. I didn't stop facing hardships. They still came. But I faced them with eyes open, aware of the lessons hidden inside. The small miracles, the subtle nudges, the signs in everyday life became a constant source of reassurance. They reminded me that I was not wandering aimlessly, that I was not unloved, that I was seen and guided. Faith, I realized, is a power, not an abstract concept, not a passive hope, but an active, dynamic force. It shapes perception, strengthens the heart, and guides the soul. The Quran doesn't promise a life without trials, but it shows a way to navigate them. It teaches that clarity, understanding, and peace are available to those willing to observe, reflect, and trust. That's the real power of faith. It's not an escape from reality. It's a lens through which reality becomes meaningful, navigable, and purposeful. And in that lens, I finally saw myself, not as a random being struggling to survive, but as someone deeply connected, intentionally placed, loved, and guided. And that understanding, seeing the signs within, recognizing the patterns, and embracing the power of faith, transformed the way I move through life. It didn't make everything easy, but it made everything make sense. Section 5. Living with gratitude and divine design expanded. The more I learned, the more I studied, the more I reflected, the clearer one truth became. Everything, science, life, faith, even the smallest moments of our existence, points back to Him, not in a vague, abstract sense, but in a way that becomes undeniable once you start really looking. And that realization humbled me in ways I cannot put into words. When you observe the world closely, the signs are everywhere. Look at the stars at night, perfectly aligned in the vast darkness, each one burning light across unimaginable distances, yet forming patterns that can guide, inspire, and even measure time. Look at the oceans, constantly in motion, yet following rules so precise that we can predict tides and currents with astounding accuracy. Look at the mountains, ancient and unyielding, carved over millennia by forces so immense yet purposeful. Look at your own body, at the complexity of your cells, the heartbeat that keeps you alive, the brain that holds your thoughts, memories, and dreams. Every single thing bears a signature, a subtle but unmistakable fingerprint, not of randomness, not of chaos, but of design, intelligence, and intentionality. The universe itself becomes a sermon. Every sunrise is a lesson in renewal. Every storm is a reminder of power and patience. Every leaf, every atom, every delicate balance is a silent message, a whisper of the Creator's presence. And once you start noticing, truly noticing, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to thinking life is random or meaningless. You start seeing purpose everywhere. You start realizing that every struggle, every delay, every heartbreak, every test isn't punishment, it's preparation. Hardship isn't meaningless, it's a tool, a refining fire designed to shape you, to strengthen you, to push you closer to clarity, faith, and understanding. And that's when the Quran takes on a whole new dimension. It isn't just a book to read, to memorize, to recite. It's a mirror that reflects truth, that reflects your own life, that reflects purpose, and the divine design woven into everything around you. It wakes you up. It forces you to see what you may have been ignoring all your life, that faith and knowledge are not separate, that belief is not blind, that the universe itself is a living, breathing message, waiting for you to decode it if you only open your eyes. I began to see life differently. My perspective shifted from fear and anxiety to clarity and calm. The trivial worries that had once consumed my mind, the constant stress over things I couldn't control, began to fade. I stopped chasing illusions, the approval of others, temporary comforts, fleeting validations. Those things suddenly seemed insignificant in comparison to the grandeur and meticulous balance of life itself. I realized that the same power and intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and stars also orchestrates my own existence. That thought, simple yet profound, brought me a sense of peace I had never known before. Living with gratitude became natural. Gratitude for the small things, the big things, the moments I had once overlooked. Gratitude for pain, for delays, for trials, because they weren't obstacles, they were lessons. Gratitude for people, for opportunities, for the moments that forced me to grow, to pause, to reflect. And with that gratitude came humility. Humility in recognizing that no matter how much I achieve, how much I understand, how much I control or influence, I am always part of a greater design, a larger plan, a divine orchestration that I cannot fully comprehend, but that I can trust. Every day became a chance to observe, reflect, and appreciate. I noticed beauty in the ordinary, the way sunlight hits a wall, the sound of wind in the trees, the laughter of a friend, the quiet rhythm of my own heartbeat. Every experience, no matter how small, became a reminder of presence, purpose, and intention. Life itself became a teacher, and I, a student learning to read its signs. And perhaps the most empowering realization of all was this: the one who holds galaxies in place also holds me together. That understanding, that awareness, became a source of strength, motivation, and serenity unlike anything else. It taught me that I am never truly alone, that guidance is always available, that even in chaos there is order, even in pain there is purpose. It changed how I breathe, how I walk, how I think. It changed the very way I experience the world. Life, I realized, is not about avoiding hardship or chasing ease. It's about seeing the divine design in every moment, embracing the lessons hidden in every experience, and walking forward with clarity, trust, and gratitude. It's about understanding that the universe, my life, and my very being are not accidents. They are intentional, purposeful, and loved. And once you truly grasp that, everything changes. You begin to live with purpose, with awareness, with humility, and with joy. You understand that every struggle has a lesson, every delay a reason, every test a hidden blessing. You realize that the cosmos isn't indifferent, it is alive with meaning, and you are an integral part of that meaning. And in that realization, you find freedom, freedom from fear, freedom from meaningless stress, freedom from the illusion that life is random. You discover the clarity, the peace, and the empowerment that comes from truly understanding divine design. And that is a gift beyond measure.